The film opens on Elizabeth, a once famous TV aerobics host, now scrambling for relevance. It's her 50th birthday and the network dumps her. Emerging from a meeting, she overhears her own poster coming down from a billboard. Shaken and humiliated, she crashes her car shortly after that moment. At the hospital, feeling broken, Elizabeth meets a discreet nurse who slips her a USB drive labeled the substance. Back home, Elizabeth hesitates but eventually plugs it into her TV. The screen splashes with sexy polished promotional footage, promising youth, beauty and perfection, all via a black market serum. Desperate, she orders it and injects the activator. What happens next is gruesome. Elizabeth convulses, an agonizing transformation begins, and from a cut in her back emerges a younger woman, naming herself Sue. Elizabeth collapses, now in a coma, while Sue stands, taking in her reflection, awash in newfound vitality. Sue begins her rise, auditioning for Elizabeth's old spot and immediately embodying the youthful energy the network craves. Sue learns from the unnamed supplier, they must switch bodies every 7 days. The active body needs intravenous feeding during rest, and Sue must inject a stabilizer fluid taken from Elizabeth's dormant body to maintain her form. Sue, caught in the intoxicating limelight, pushes her advantage, extending time in youth, risking Elizabeth's rapid aging. Later, Sue finally grants Elizabeth her time. With measured precision, she transfers blood back to Elizabeth's unconscious body. As the serum's effects reverse, Sue's body slowly goes limp while Elizabeth's awakens in painful waves, her nerves catching up after a full week of paralysis. Hunger overtakes her immediately. Elizabeth stumbles into the kitchen and devours a full dinner in solitude, her first real meal in days. The following day, Elizabeth is called to her former talent agency and arrives at the facility. Harvey, her old agent, meets her with forced warmth and hands her a small box of her personal belongings. With little ceremony, he lets her know that a new talent, younger and beautiful, has taken her place, and wishes her well in her retirement. It's not cruel nor personal, just business. Back at her apartment, Elizabeth pulls out a wall calendar and starts to chart a timetable, noting down precise days for her and Sue to alternate. She's trying to gain control, to bring order to this chaotic dual existence. A few days pass, Elizabeth rifles through her mail and notices a discreet envelope. It's from the substance. Inside is a cryptic note, instructing her to pick up her refill. That day, she walks through a desolate part of town and goes inside an abandoned building, and retrieves the box. 7 days pass, and Sue returns in full form. But this time, something has shifted. Sue walks through the apartment not as a temporary visitor but with the air of permanence. She eyes the space, particularly the bathroom. A plan forms. With a hammer and determination, she starts tearing down part of the wall, clearing space behind it. This is where she'll store Elizabeth's dormant body. Not out of cruelty, but because she now sees herself as the one who truly deserves to live. The loud banging draws the attention of the neighbor next door. Sue opens the door, radiant and effortlessly charming. The neighbor, caught off guard by her beauty, softens immediately. She lies, claiming to be the new tenant. The neighbor accepts the story without question and apologizes for the intrusion. Sue drags Elizabeth's body to the hollowed-out space behind the bathroom wall, and seals her off like a secret. The next day, Sue is radiant on the set of a televised aerobics segment. Every camera lingers on her. Her energy, beauty, and charisma skyrocket the show's ratings. Sue soaks in the applause, the attention and the validation. That night, she slips into a tight black bodysuit and steps out with her new circle of glamorous friends, headed to the club. But the clock is ticking, and she loses track of time, wrapped up in the high of the night. Later, she returns to the apartment with a guy and they kiss and make out, but soon, her nose begins to bleed. She stumbles to the bathroom, opens the hidden wall. Inside, Elizabeth's body lies drained, the last of the serum gone. Sue realizes her mistake, she's pushed past the limit. Instead of yielding, and allowing Elizabeth to return, Sue makes a grim decision. She crouches over the sleeping Elizabeth, takes a syringe, and inserts it into her spinal cord, harvesting her own original host's neural fluid and injects the stolen essence into her bloodstream. The next morning, Elizabeth wakes up to the mess Sue has left behind, empty wine bottles, clothes on the floor, the faint smell of perfume and sex still lingering in the air. She then notices her finger, the skin looks different, more wrinkled in a way that wasn't there before. Panic begins to well in her chest, as she realizes Sue had taken an extra day or two. She rushes to the bathroom, turns on the tap, and scrubs her hands furiously. But the aged skin doesn't wash away. Desperate, she calls the supplier of the substance. She demands a reversal, a fix to this spiraling disaster. But the calm voice on the other end is merciless, telling her there is no reversal. Anger floods her next. She grabs a rag and begins cleaning the apartment, as if she can wipe away Sue's violation. As she straightens the living room, she notices the TV is still on. Sue's show plays in vibrant color, Sue, perfect and glowing, smiling through another aerobics segment like she owns the world. Elizabeth watches in silence for a moment. Jealousy boils in her gut, and lunges at the remote and shuts the TV off. Later that day, Elizabeth ventures out into the gray city. She heads to the location where she's been instructed to pick up her third dose of serum. After retrieving the case, she exits quickly, hurrying down the sidewalk. But just outside, she bumps into Sue's boyfriend and he scolds her, then speeds off on his motorbike, leaving her even more humiliated. That evening, trying to recapture her sense of self, Elizabeth puts on makeup, curls her hair, and selects a modest dress. She's arranged a date with a man who has always adored her, an awkward, nerdy but kind man. She never gave him a chance. But tonight, she needs to feel wanted again. She checks her reflection. Her confidence flickers, but she adds more makeup, then more. Hours pass as she tries to perfect her face, to erase the damage. The time of the date slips by unnoticed. Later, she sees missed texts on her phone. Her date asks if she's okay, if she's coming, but she doesn't reply. Her insecurity has imprisoned her. 7 days later, Sue returns to her world of lights and cameras. On set, she dances in front of the studio crew, vibrant as always. But mid-performance, something goes wrong. She feels pressure in her lower back, something unnatural. She panics and flees backstage, slams her dressing room door shut, and frantically strips. She pushes her hand against the strange swelling on her back. It pulses, and she pushes harder till a fried chicken leg erupts from her stomach that Elizabeth ate the previous day to sabotage her body. The next day, shaken but composed, Sue returns to work. She expects things to continue as they always have. But this time, the atmosphere is different. The producer tells her the show is being cancelled. Before she can absorb the blow, she's summoned to Harvey's office. There, Harvey delivers surprising news. She's been selected to host the biggest television event in America, the New Year's Eve show. But the show falls on Elizabeth's week. Sue doesn't hesitate. She steals another few days, then another, extracting fluid from Elizabeth's spine each time. She injects it into her own body like a junkie feeding off someone else's soul. The more she takes, the more radiant she becomes. But the cost is devastating. A few weeks later, Elizabeth wakes. She tries to sit up, but every movement feels like her bones are collapsing. She shuffles to the mirror and gasps. Her body is ancient, wrinkled, frail, and barely mobile. Not the 50-year-old woman she once was, but a withered husk closer to 90. That evening, she hobbles into the kitchen, her joints cracking with every step. She tries to cook something, maybe to feel normal again. But when she glances at the television, she sees Sue. Looking so young and alive. Something in Elizabeth breaks, and she grabs the carton of eggs from the counter and hurls them at the screen, one after another. 7 days later, Sue awakens, but the glow fades the second she sits up and surveys the apartment. It's trashed again. Sue realizes that Elizabeth is not stable and doesn't deserve this life anymore. She sets up the syringe again, extracting more of Elizabeth's spinal fluid to buy herself more weeks to live. 3 months pass, and Sue has become the dominant soul. She lives out loud and free, basking in fame and beauty. The apartment now feels like hers completely. Her new boyfriend practically lives there, charmed by her every move. Tomorrow night, she'll host the New Year's Eve special and all eyes will be on her. But that night, as she prepares to extract yet another dose of Elizabeth's essence, something is wrong. The syringe fills not with the usual serum, but with something foul and rotted. Her body begins to tremble. She collapses to the floor and crawls to the bathroom, dragging her limbs like dead weight. With no other choice, she switches. Soon, Elizabeth wakes, and what opens her eyes isn't a woman, it's a monstrous creature. She dresses herself in silence and leaves the apartment one final time, and she retrieves her last serum dose and returns to the apartment, dragging Sue's body into the lounge. Elizabeth preps the syringe, not with poison, but with a termination serum designed to jolt Sue awake. She needs her, just to help her go out big. Sue stirs minutes later, gasping into consciousness. But the first thing she sees is the needle on the floor. Her thoughts jump to betrayal. Sue lunges at her and pins Elizabeth down and kills her. New Year's Eve, Sue is dressed in shimmering diamonds, camera ready. But just before going on stage, a sharp ache pulses in her jaw. She reaches up, and her tooth falls out, then another. Panicked, Sue races home and injects the new dose. Her body convulses. Moments later, something claws its way out of her. A grotesque, Deformed creature, part Sue, part Elizabeth, part corrupted Serum. It slips into her glittering dress, and walks out the door. Back at the studio, the crowd is waiting, and cameras rolling. The doors swing open and the creature walks out. Gasps fill the air, and screams follow. The studio manager rushes forward with a stage prop, smashes it down on the creature's skull. Blood sprays across the set and it falls on the ground. But from the wreckage, a fragment of Elizabeth crawls free from the remains. She drags herself across the bloodied floor, down the Walk of Fame. There, on her Hollywood star, she lays and dies. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe for more notifications. Until next time. See you soon.